GPU prices are already being slashed. Let's talk about it. So the 4060 Ti was just launched alongside the RX 7600 being announced, and well, these two cards were definitely not being received well by gamers whatsoever. In fact, it's starting to look like the sales are so bad that prices are probably going to have to be slashed on these cards, and are already being slashed on many other cards as well. So this is definitely going to be some great news for gamers. If you're in the market for a new GPU of any kind, you're definitely going to want to pay attention to today's video. And first, let's go ahead and start off by talking about the various different cards that have already gotten some price drops. Now, taking a look here first at some Nvidia GPUs, and specifically coming from MSI. And by the way, this was posted over on videocards.com, and taking a look at their article, we can see here they posted, quote, MSI lowers the price on RTX 30 series. And if we actually go ahead and take a look at the specific examples that were given, the RTX 3050 has dropped to $220, the 3060 8GB has dropped to $260, the 3060 12GB has dropped to $280, which is a pretty significant drop from, I believe, its original $330, which in fact, honestly guys, the RTX 4060 is unlikely to be too much more than 10% faster than this. So the RTX 3060 being about 10% cheaper, it's actually the better deal because it has 50% more video memory, and it's also likely going to have a lot less issues with higher resolutions, as it has a much higher 360 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth as well. So it definitely would be my choice if I had to choose between the 3060 and the 4060. But honestly guys, there's a lot of way better options out there. Specifically, if you're taking a look at new, the Intel Arc A750 recently had a huge price drop over on Newegg as well. It dropped to as low as $200, and in my testing, it's actually consistently and significantly faster than the RTX 3060 at this point. So at such a low price, and I have seen some people claiming that it might have jumped up to $230 now. Maybe it was only a temporary sale, but even at $230, that's still $50 cheaper than the 3060, and it is actually going to be around $70 cheaper than the RTX 4060, and probably give you pretty similar amounts of performance. So I would definitely be going for the Arc A750 over even these price dropped 3060s, and definitely the RTX 4060. But moving on here guys, we also have the 3060 Ti dropped to $315, which, to be honest with you, is actually very good, and I would actually strongly consider if you're looking at a new type of GPU, as the 3060 Ti is barely any slower than the 4060 Ti, and is going to be a much better deal considering that you're saving nearly $100, and this is getting close to some used prices. So very, very good stuff there. And then finally, we have the RTX 3070, which has dropped to $450. And to be honest with you guys, this one, not a great deal. So I definitely would be avoiding that. But especially taking a look at that 3060 Ti, you can see there are some great deals to be had even on new video cards. But moving on, if you guys want to hear some even more great news and something that I find to be pretty funny, well, according to another videocards.com article, it looks like only one person went to go and buy an RTX 4060 Ti in Japan, at least in one popular retail store, which is absolutely hilarious, and I'm glad to see it, because the 4060 Ti, in my opinion, is probably the worst video card Nvidia has ever released. Now, if we take a look at their article, we can see here that they state that, quote, GDM report that only one person was waiting to purchase an RTX 4060 Ti at Despara, I won't even try and say this one, retail chain. So again, that is absolutely hilarious, and I'm really glad to see that. But if that wasn't good enough for you guys, here's a couple other stories that I think you're really gonna like. Now, this next one, again, comes from videocards.com, and it looks like the RX 7600 is not selling well because, according to the article, quote, AMD Radeon RX 7600 with a 13% discount for Spanish gamers. And they go on to say, while it took 4 hours for the GeForce RTX 4060 Ti to receive a quick €20 discount, the Radeon RX 7600 needed one day. And apparently they state that it's now dropped to 259 euros, down from its official MSRP of 299 euros, which is actually a 13% price drop. And actually at that price point is probably not too bad of an option if you're someone who is looking for a card like this in that area. But as you can see, it's starting to sound like the high prices on GPUs are just not flying with consumers, and they're saying no. And speaking of the 4060 Ti, as they just mentioned, yes, that also received a small discount, at least on one model, just hours after launch, according to video cards. So it's definitely not looking good for Nvidia and AMD, as their cards are not selling well whatsoever. And I mean, who could have predicted this? You continue to release basically the same card over and over every single generation, and the only thing that you're adding is newer features. Yeah, people just aren't going to be too interested in that, especially in the case of the 4060 Ti, where in some cases, yes, it can be better, but there are actually some situations where the 4060 Ti, with its atrocious memory bandwidth, it could actually end up being slower than the 3060 Ti. Now, on average, of course, I do expect it to be faster across the board, but it just goes to show you that it seems like, especially in the case of Nvidia, they just keep taking more and more away and giving you, as Paul from over at Not an Apple Fan likes to say, less chocolate. When you take a look at the 4090, why is that thing becoming 80% faster than the 3090, yet the RTX 4060 Ti is like, what, 15% faster on average, or maybe even a little bit less than the 3060 Ti? I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous, and in my opinion, this is just Nvidia trying to space out their cards as much as possible so they can try and upsell you on these higher priced cards, such as maybe you wanted the 4060 Ti, well, maybe because of its low amount of video memory and its high price considering its low performance increase, you'll start to consider the RTX 4070, or maybe the 4070 doesn't have enough video memory and enough of performance increase that you'll start to consider a 4070 Ti, and the 4070 Ti buyers might start to consider the 4080, and then the 4080 buyers are like, hey, it's $1,200, it's ridiculous, I might as well buy a 4090. So then you turn a 4060 Ti buyer into a 4090 buyer. At this point, it's the only thing that makes any sense to me, because these prices of the mid-range to the entry level are so ridiculous, and even the 4080 high-end cards are so stupid that it almost makes no sense to buy anything but a 4090. And if you don't want a 4090, buy AMD or Intel, because all these cards are just, it's so dumb. It's such a stupid price, but this is such a stupid generation. I can't believe that's going to do it for this video. But hey, that's just what I think. Do you think that video cards are going to continue to drop in price, or do you think we've already seen the bottom? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below, and of course, I'll see you in the next video. If you made it to the end of the video, be sure to drop a like. Every time you do so, AMD and Nvidia release new GPUs. Also, if you want to see more, check out one of these related videos. You won't be disappointed.